Yeah. And we're live. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So today we're here to talk about The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves really quick before we start?
Who's going first?
Amber.
Okay. Hi, I'm Amber from Books of Amber. I'm on BookTube, Bookstagram, kind of, and I have a book blog. Yeah, and I read a lot.
Yes. I guess I'll go. So I'm Kayla, and my BookTube channel is Crack Into a Good Book. Admittedly, I have not posted in several weeks because we bought a house and have been moving, and my life is a hot mess. So just busy. But yeah, like to read a lot as well.
I'm Kerry. My channel is Kerry Louise Reads. I have also not posted in a while because chronic illness. Editing is really difficult when you have fatigue. I'm just saying. So hopefully we'll be back to posting soon. I also love to read.
Can you imagine if this was like in Finding Nemo, where you were like, "Hi, I'm Kerry, and I don't think I've ever read a book."
And I'm Stephanie. My channel is Miss Richards Reads, and I also have not posted in a while because of life. And I also read a lot of books. So,
yay!
Hello, Nikki.
Hey, Nikki. Yes,
I know. Who would have
allegedly?
Yeah.
So do we want to do like non-spoiler? Like, what was your overall thoughts on the book?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I'm going to try to prop up my computer on this notebook, so give me a second.
Okay. And I'm
just like afraid of knocking it over again. Okay.
And I'm also interested if this is your first Ken Liu or not.
Yeah, so this was my first Ken Liu book. I read it at the beginning of April. I had it out as an ebook from the library. I don't remember very much of it, so this could be interesting. Hasn't stayed with me at all. My overall thoughts were kind of like, there were bits of it that I really enjoyed, but hi Lana, but the pacing was really weird for me. It took me a really long time to get into it. There were so many characters that it was hard to keep track of them all. And for the first half of the book, there were only 2 female characters, and one of them wasn't very interesting and the other one was killed off almost immediately. And there was kind of this pattern of I'd get invested in a character and then they'd be killed off. So I got quite frustrated when I was reading it. The second half was much better, but yeah, it ended up being about a 3-star for me. It just didn't hold my interest well enough, which was a shame because there was lots to like, and I really wanted to like it, but I think it just was maybe a couple of 100 pages too long.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fair. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think I had read like a short story collection where I don't know if he was the editor or if he translated some of the works or what. So I guess I have experienced some of his writing before, but this is like my first main book by him.
He is a translator, isn't he?
Yeah. So I think I ended up giving this 4 stars, which was interesting. And I definitely agree there are periods of time where it's like, oh my God, nothing is happening. So that was a bit of a struggle. But yeah, I feel like it did take me a while to get through, and I wasn't always invested in the characters. And yeah, like Kerry was saying with the female characters, that was a big struggle. But like towards the end, I think things got better. But yeah, there were definitely periods of time where I was like, okay, this is like really investing, or I was like really invested in it. And like, I don't know, it felt like a rich, intricate sort of story. And then there would be times where it's like, oh my God, nothing is happening. And then we kind of go back and forth between that. But I think in the end, I was like, I felt very positive about it overall. I think it's one that would actually be better to like read it in small chunks at a time, because it's like I tried to kind of do my normal sort of like speed reading, I guess, which did not work at all. I was like, I just can't do this because it's just too much almost. I don't know if that made sense.
No, yeah, it did.
Yeah.
I had really similar feelings. I thought that the first 150 pages were really good because I was really into the world building, and there were literal explosions in the first like 50 pages. I thought that was really cool, and the two introductions to the two main characters were really interesting. But as it went on and he started to introduce more characters in the exact same way as the two mains, I was kind of like, do we really need like a whole chapter for their whole entire backstory, like from the time they're born right up until now? It's kind of like, this is like an encyclopedia almost.
Yeah, especially when they went to kill them off like within a couple of
yeah.
wasted all this time telling me about this character that's only in it for a couple of minutes.
Exactly. So I thought they were going to be more relevant, but they weren't. And then in the middle I got kind of bored, and then by the end I didn't really care about the characters anymore, but I was invested in the story, I think. Even though I didn't really care about, is it Cooney and
Mata?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Sorry, Quill's mumbling the names next to me.
This was my first or my second Ken Liu. So I read the Paper Menagerie collection and I loved it. And so I was hesitant to go into this one, and I'm really glad I didn't speed read it like I normally do, because that would have been horrible. But I started it a couple weeks ago and just did little chunks, and I think that worked for me. And then the audiobook didn't really work for me, I think, because there was just so much. And then Michael Kramer, even though I like him as a narrator, it made it so easy to just zone out, and I couldn't remember things.
Oh dear.
But I agree with what you said. The beginning was really good, and then the middle kind of dipped a bit, but I felt like the end made it worth it for me. But it kind of reminded me of like Malazan. Like, it takes a little bit to get into, and it's best to read it slowly.
I'm nodding as though I've read it, but I'm sure that's the case.
Though.
Well, like some books like Sanderson, you can just binge and you get everything. And then some books like this, you have to kind of little chunks at a time. And I also got frustrated that not all the characters were relevant. And I didn't realize that until somebody said it in a Discord. And then it's like, oh, well, then I don't care anymore. I'm just going to keep going and not even try to. But overall, I'm going to give it, I think, a 4.5. I really liked it. And I like that it read kind of as a standalone, or you could continue.
That's the thing for me as well about the ending, without spoiling anything. It did read as a standalone. I was wondering how he was going to expand it into, I think, 4 books. Because it did seem to be its own story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think from the series title is The Dandelion Dynasty, that it's going to go on to the children of the
right,
like the next generation,
the survivors.
Yeah. But I mean, if it's going to be a similar thing of he's going to introduce loads and loads more characters, then I didn't like it enough to carry on the series personally. If Amber,
I don't think I would. To be
I'll
honest,
get the synopsis from that.
Yeah, I can see it either way. I mean, I totally get why people aren't just like, oh my God, this is the best book ever. But I understand why people.
Yeah, and I think for me, it was just a confirmation really that it's not the type of fantasy that I really enjoy. It was like just really heavy military fantasy. It was a lot of battles, a lot of strategy, and not a lot of magic. And I generally read fantasy for the magic, not for the battles. If I wanted to read about battles, I'd read historical war fiction. So yeah, that was just it. I was a bit disappointed because, like, the first couple of chapters, I was really interested, like with the assassination attempt. Like, oh, assassins, oh, okay. And then it just kind of got into this rhythm of introduce a new character, heavy backstory, let's have a battle, introduce a new character, heavy backstory, let's have another battle. and battle, and then it was kind of like got to halfway, and then there was a break from battles for about maybe 50 pages, and I was like, oh, okay, no more battles, maybe we'll get some character development or something interesting. Oh no, back into battles. Okay, great. So, yeah, it just in terms of genre, it wasn't quite what I look for in a fantasy, and like I go into books not knowing a lot about them generally, so you know, the risk you take with stuff like this. I mean, I'm glad we picked it for book club. I'm glad to say
I've been meaning to read it for ages, so I'm glad we picked it.
Yeah, I think the writing style is part of it too, because it's like he zoomed in and then zoomed out and then zoomed back in, and I'm not used to that at all. So it took a little to get used to.
Yeah, and I think kind of like what Amber had said with it feeling almost like an encyclopedia. It's like, especially with the battles, it's very detailed at times and does read almost like a history textbook, which is like, okay, this is a bit of a struggle. But yeah, I mean, I guess I was, on one hand, I think I was kind of prepared for it not having a lot of magic because I feel like I had seen that before. But, you know, it's like once you're actually reading it, then you truly understand what that entails. And like, I thought the gods were interesting, but I also wanted more involvement.
Yeah, that was one of the most interesting elements to me. Just on the like reading like an encyclopedia thing, I'm not quite sure how I want to rate a book, I'll look at like reviews at different levels. And I thought it was, I mean, I don't know if I should laugh, I thought it was really funny that some of the 1-star reviews were because it is like almost cut and paste from Chinese history, from a particular period of Chinese history. It's with a magic, and like this, a couple of people were like really, really angry that it's like he's literally taken Chinese history and added a bit of magic. And
I think I saw one of those reviews. I saw one of them calling him a plagiarist, and I was like, copying history isn't plagiarism, but
yeah, but I think that might be why it sometimes reads a bit like a military history textbook, is because it kind of is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a good point. It's definitely, it's more of a plot-driven book.
But like a slow plot-driven book.
Yeah.
World building driven.
Yeah. That is interesting to think about.
Yeah. So I think my biggest gripe was that I wanted more female characters.
Yes.
And I know they came in a little later. And the ones that did come in, I really liked. But the first half of the book is so male dominated.
Yeah.
And I've heard it gets better, but
I've also heard that. And so that I think I am interested in continuing the series and seeing, you know, at least how the second book goes. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I started off liking both of the male main characters, but then there was a point where I got really frustrated with Mata and was like, okay, I'm done with you. And it just like goes on and on about the two of them. And so, yeah, it's like, I think once Jin, I don't remember what her last name is, Jin Mazzotti, once she's introduced, that was the point where I was like, okay, I am much more invested again, because that was kind of like a lull in the pacing as well. And then like once we get her backstory, I was like, okay, yeah, this is much better. And she seems actually kind of interesting. I don't even remember what some of the other female characters, the princess who was like,
you know.
We
need to put up the spoiler banner because
that's true.
Because there is something I want to talk about.
Because Jim is through earlier in the book before we get her backstory, but she is in disguised as a man. So that was she was like that was one aspect of the story I was really invested in, with her story, her story. That was one point I was like, okay, maybe I could enjoy this book, and then it didn't, like, it just didn't quite materialize for me. And the princess Kikomi, she's in just before the halfway point, and I was like, I thought she was a brilliant character, and she's in it for like 4 chapters, and then she gets killed off, and I was just like, and that was one moment where I just was like, like if it hadn't been for book club, I probably would have DNF'd at that point. Like this is basically the second female character we've got, and you've killed her off within 4 chapters. And Gia, who is Cooney's wife, who's introduced at the beginning, like the first couple of chapters with her, she was like fascinating. Like she's great. She's this herbalist. She's like giving him herbs that make him react in different ways and helps him build his profile. And then she just like gets pregnant and disappears. Like, and I was just like, why? You could do something more with her. And then, to be fair, in the second half of the book, she does get a bit more of a role and a bit more of an input, and her character does develop a bit more. But I just found it really frustrating that there weren't that many female characters, particularly in the first half of the book, and the ones that were there weren't developed very much. It was just kind of like they were plot devices rather than actual characters, is what it felt like to me. I'm sounding really negative. I did enjoy a lot of this book.
No, I think those are valid points.
Yeah.
I mean, I was really upset when he killed off Kikomi. And then I really didn't get invested in the book until Jin, I think that's how you pronounce it, came in. And then she's the one I was like, I want to follow her. But
and then, Cooney's second wife is also in. I don't remember what her name is, but she was also kind of interesting.
Rizana.
Yeah.
I've got the list of characters.
Nice.
I remember them.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely frustrated with Kikomi's death. Like, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, I kind of, I guess, appreciate her being like, okay, well, I'm stuck in this shitty situation, and I've been like outmaneuvered, so I'm just going to try to remove myself, I guess, to foil their plot in the only way I can now. So, like, I guess that's kind of good, but at the same time, I was like, I just wanted more of that, more of her.
There was one scene with Jen, like at the beginning with the orphans, or not the beginning, but with her. I will never forget that scene. And I was reading it, and I literally gasped out loud. And it was,
Yeah, that was one moment where you put something on the Discord chat, and I was like, but then I did remember that one. I do know what she's talking about. And
I love that they got what was coming to them at the end.
That was pretty great.
Even though it was disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah.
The thing I wanted to say about Marta's character, because I had a similar experience, I think, to you, Kayla, is that like at the beginning I quite liked him, and then he just got more and more annoying. And it kind of reminded me of Song of Achilles. I know it's like different, but well, it's similar in some ways, because that's a retelling of Greek myth. This is kind of a fantasy retelling of Chinese history, but just that bit towards the end of Song of Achilles, sorry, spoilers for Song of Achilles here as well, where he's just like Achilles is refusing to fight until they give him the respect he thinks he deserves. And like Marta, similar but the other way, is just like, no, it's all about glory, it's all about honor, and like coming up with good plans to avoid killing many people is not the proper way to do war. And I'm just like, and there was a term that I used about Song of Achilles, which also I think applies towards the end of this book, which is willy wanging, which is just men like trying to show how manly they are by fighting. And it just
yes, I love it. That is accurate. Oh my god.
Yes.
Yep. No, that's perfect. I think there was a point, I think it was kind of in the middle where Cooney, kind of sneaks in to capture the main imperial city or whatever it is, and Mata is like super upset about that. And it's like, okay, well, he saved a lot of lives. So I don't know. And I think it's that same thing with like honor and glory. Like, it's not, I don't know, honorable to sneak in behind people's backs and like take over the city that way. But also,
she's vanished halfway through.
Yep, I think my computer cut out there on the internet, but yes.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that, Fina. I feel like that with Robin Hobb too, because there are a few characters that I just loathe.
Yeah.
But she evokes such a strong reaction that.
I think we were kind of told in the beginning that he would be that way as well, though, because we got that whole backstory about his family, how he was raised by his uncle. So at least it was set up that way, and it didn't come out of left field.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think the thing with like, so I prefer character-driven books generally to plot-driven, and this was a bit heavier on the plot than the character development, but also like I have to be able to root for the characters even if they're unlikable. Like I can root for unlikable characters if I understand their motivations and why they're doing what they're doing. And I think for me in this book, like Cooney was a character that at times was quite unlikable, but still was rooting for him. Marta slipped over into you're really annoying me now.
I think it's a very fine line, isn't it?
Yeah. There is that, as you say, a fine line between like an unlikable character still being one that you want to know how it turns out for them, and one that frustrates you so much that you kind of get a bit fed up with reading about them.
Yeah.
So in Song of Achilles, that was like I was done with that book at that point. I was like, I don't care anymore. I did finish the book, by the way. But
I get that. I really like Soto too, the housekeeper.
Oh yeah, she was a good character.
I like that she was like kind of a breath of fresh air with everyone, and then we learn who she is, and it's like yes. So.
Yeah, I was trying to remember when I read it, whether she was mentioned in Marta's backstory or not, but I couldn't remember, and it was an ebook, so I wasn't going to try and click back and figure it out. I had vague memories of them mentioning a sister, but
yeah. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember as well. I can't.
Yeah, I can't remember that one.
See, that's the problem with doing one big info dump right at the beginning and then not mentioning it again later.
Yes.
But I thought she was a really good addition to that household.
I feel like, I don't know, I mean, there's definitely a few characters that stood out to me, but at the same time, I feel like there were a lot of people I could not remember anyone's names or keep anyone's straight. I'm like, who is this person again? So that was a bit of a struggle. And I mean, I think kind of what we've been talking about, where he introduces people, have a large backstory, sometimes kill them off, and then like, or, mention them. And then like 200 pages later, they come up again. It was a little challenging.
Yeah. That's why I kind of compared it to Malazan, because sometimes I feel like that with that series too, even though I really like it. That's one thing that's frustrating. And I wish it was more fluid, maybe would be the word. But
yeah. And I mean, it was helpful that there was a list of characters at the beginning, but that's less helpful again when you're reading it.
And that's what helped me physically reading it too, because with audio, I think I just wasn't seeing the names, so I couldn't remember anything.
Yeah.
So I feel like if I had read this physically the entire way through, maybe I would have remembered more. But yeah, it's definitely a series I'm going to have to read with my eyes.
Yes.
Definitely agree with that.
In some ways, I might have enjoyed it more and might have stayed with me better if I'd had it as a physical book. But I'm also kind of relieved that I didn't go out and buy it. That I borrowed it as an ebook because, probably I'm not going to reread it.
Yeah. So, I also really liked. We just mentioned her name, Rosanna. I think her smoke magic. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. I was
And I
definitely
really-
intrigued by that and want more.
Yeah, and I liked her as a character. I felt
Mhm.
like she was a nice, strong female character.
And strong in different ways, I think, from Gia. So I'm kind of curious to see. I mean, like, we kind of saw that a bit once everybody is reunited towards the end. But yeah, I feel like even though Gia was like, oh, yeah, you can go ahead and marry another lady, she's just like, kind of questioning her choices with that.
Yeah. That kind of I didn't have a strong feeling about that part either way. It was just like I kind of understand why you're doing that, but also like why?
Yeah, and also the whole thing with her and the bodyguard guy whose name I can't remember.
That's right. Yeah.
Otho?
I don't know. That sounds vaguely familiar.
Yeah. I wasn't a huge fan of that.
No.
And maybe we just didn't get enough of them because we don't get as much character development.
Yeah, I mean, the scene where like he goes to collect her and take her to when they're outlaws, and he gets them lost and she finds the way back, and it's evident from that moment that he's in awe of her. And just didn't, I don't know, there was something about like the balance of power of it, just their relationship just didn't, something about it just didn't quite sit right with me. That and I could understand from her perspective that like her husband's really far away, wanting the comfort, and but again, I mean, I'm not a big fan of kind of infidelity plot lines, and then to have it spun as being like, well, you can go and marry someone else because I kind of found a replacement husband, so it's like it just it didn't quite sit right for me.
And I liked that scene with them in the beginning, but she also didn't have that power that she had when they finally got together.
Yeah,
I felt like that one was more organic. And I kind of liked the way it was written, but I didn't really like the later scenes. And then he also wasn't very mad. Cooney wasn't very mad when he found it, right? Because he found the hairs on the pillow. And I expected a bigger reaction than what he gave.
Yeah, I guess like I don't know. Is his character just meant to be like extremely practical about every single thing possible?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of came across that way.
Yeah. I don't know,
because I think the one thing that he wouldn't be that practical about would be his wife.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I guess that felt like more of I don't know. It's not even more of like a modern attitude towards it. It's more like I don't know. I have no idea what I'm trying to say. I guess with it being based on historical things, I would have expected a more strong reaction from him.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think particularly kind of in patriarchal societies, like, so I'm reading a book at the moment which is about like European royalty in like the 18th century, and like there's very much this attitude of, oh, it's fine for the king to have loads of mistresses, but as soon as there's rumors of the queen having like another male partner,
they chop their heads off.
So I guess kind of from that perspective, it is quite a more modern understanding, but just something about that relationship wasn't.
Well, and it's interesting too, because Mata, I think he only had one female, and that was Mira. That I remember, just one throughout the whole book.
Well, there was Kokomi was.
Yeah.
Was. I think that was. I think that. Sorry, train of thought. I think part of the reason why I was upset about Kokomi's death was because I liked her and Marta together. There was, from the way it was written, there was clearly affection both ways between them, and like how differently could he have turned out as a person if he'd had loving, supportive relationship from sooner in his story. And Mira was a character that I did really like, particularly the whole thing, like her embroidery and how she draws out like meaning and makes Marta think differently about things. I can't remember the exact way she describes it, but yeah, so I think part of my frustration over the death of Kokomi was that if Marta had had that kind of positive, loving influence, because he'd been raised to be a warrior, basically, and hadn't had really, like, he had some form of love from his uncle, but yeah, so that was just one of my frustrations with that as a storyline. And I understand why he wrote it the way he wrote it, but from my perspective, I would have liked that situation to go differently, and it could have been a very different book that I maybe would have enjoyed. That have been different. Who knows?
Oh, yeah,
I totally get that. I did really like. I can't remember because it spans such a large period of time. There's one part where they tunneled under the sea to get over, and then they had the mechanical crewmans.
Yes.
I thought that was a really cool addition.
Yeah, I liked that a lot.
Yeah.
I like how they did different things like that in the book. It made military stuff more interesting to me.
I'd agree with that. And I also liked, for most of the book, I liked the character Kindo Marana, who was the tax collector that was made into a general, and kind of the setup of his character. I liked him less as the book went on, but that setup of like the prime minister choosing him because he was fed up of him pestering him about how the tax stuff wasn't working properly, and he was trying to get rid of him, thought he'd be killed off really quickly. But actually taking that kind of administrative brain and the kind of the bureaucratic bean counting, and actually it made him a really successful general. I thought that was a really clever concept, and I actually quite liked that concept. I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, I agree, and I had very similar thoughts. I thought that was a nice touch. Especially, I guess, for me, you know, being more of a mathematically inclined person, I was like, yes, love this.
It's nice when they can make tax collecting fun.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen that often. Oh my gosh. And
I'm trying to, like, I don't know. I feel, for me, even though we've talked about how this is more of like a plot-driven book, I feel like the characters are what I remember more of it. Like, I couldn't tell you a lot of the plot other than there's like a lot of battles and, you know, things happen, I guess, but.
Yeah, and I mostly just remember the big battle at the end. I don't remember a lot of details of the earlier stuff. Yeah, that's a good point. But I thought it was interesting, their dynamics in the battle. And there was one scene, I can't remember their names. It was Ratho and somebody else. But he found out his brother was on the other side, on Cooney's side.
Yeah.
And he's like, Mata says, go ahead and kill me so you can be with your brother. And then it's like, and then his head flew off, and it's like,
Well,
right.
Yeah.
But I just thought how they did little interesting things like that. I wasn't expecting moments like that of compassion, maybe.
Yeah.
Because he's so like, I want power. I'm going to have it. I mean, he still got on my nerves, but.
And what I liked about that was that the brothers had been on the same side, and then was it the trickster god that interfered and separated them, sent one of them with Cooney and one of them with Marta. And actually that was another aspect of the book that I liked, and I think Kayla mentioned this earlier, like the subtle ways and the more obvious ways that these god characters were interacting with the mortals. But that was something that I wanted more of, but I also couldn't keep the gods straight in my head, and there were instances where like it was conversations between the gods, but it wasn't specified which gods were in the conversation. I was like, I have no idea who you are or which side you're on anymore anyway. So yeah, so a little bit more clarity about that, and a little bit more of those god characters, I think would have been really interesting.
Yeah, because there was a good scene at the end where they were discussing it. And it's like, I don't remember which god you are or what you're doing. But yeah, that would have been more fun. And maybe they'll play off more later. But
that's what I'm curious about, because if they are more involved in the later books, that would be so much more interesting. But yeah, it kind of ended up at the end of the book where it's like, okay, they all had their schemes. Some of it worked out, some of it didn't. And now they're all kind of like forced together.
We've lost her again halfway through a sentence.
Her internet is so rude.
oh my gosh.
My internet was dumb again. I don't know. I don't know where that cut me off.
Halfway through the sentence about them all coming together.
Oh yeah. So I don't know what an interaction with the gods would be like in future books, if they're all like, are they all working towards the same goal now, or are we going to get more schemes between them? I don't know.
Yeah, it would be nice if this was like a setup book, and then the rest of the books we really explored everything and got more memorable plot, maybe. Because I feel like I just remember little pieces of the plot. I don't remember the overarching thing as a whole.
Yeah.
Just certain scenes stuck with me. But I've also been reading A Chorus of Dragons, and gods interact with them a lot.
Yeah.
So it's hard to not compare the two.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that the Jen Lyons series? I've been meaning to check that one out.
It's really good.
Yeah. I read the first one years ago and bought the second one, and then, like I do with all these series, I haven't continued it, even though I've been like really meaning to get back into it.
That's what I normally do. I'm horrible at reading series in a timely manner, and I'm already on book 4, and I started book 1, I think at the beginning of April.
That's quite
impressive. Okay.
So
I think Angela had a similar experience, didn't she? She sped through it as well.
Yeah, they're just fun.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. But yeah,
Dragons would have really helped this book.
Yes, 100% agree.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I didn't make any notes. I just kind of went into this like.
And then I looked at some of the stuff that came up on Discord when we were.
I was just looking through some of the 1-star reviews on Goodreads, and in regards to the criticism about the female characters and how they're barely present or they're not very good, apparently the author addressed this on Twitter and said that he understands that approaching gender this way is risky and it's problematic in some ways, but he's hoping to develop the issue over a longer arc of the series. And then he says, I think some readers will not have the patience, and I have learned a lesson.
Yeah, because Kyle from Read by Kyle, he just finished book 4. And he said that the female characters really do have more of a presence, and it's actually a very feminist series. So I'm interested to see what I think, but I'm glad to hear that more female characters come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that some people, if he was like sort of laying the groundwork in this first book, some people didn't pick up on it, like me and Kerry. Or was it there at all and he's just now saying that it was, and that was his plan all along for all 4 books?
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's hard.
Are they quite different?
They're different.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like this one is more dense and kind of...
I mean, it's not as magical at all.
Yeah, it's not as magical. It's more military, and it's very, very slow burn. Whereas Chorus of Dragons is one that it's kind of puzzly, but in a fun way, not an exhausting way. And it's just fun to read, and you just love the characters. So, yeah, maybe this one is one where if you'd want something heavier or denser, and then Chorus of Dragons if you want something light or lighter and faster.
Yeah. I feel like it's intricate in a different way.
Yeah.
You know, at least with the first book, there's a very strange, I guess, or just kind of unique way of telling the story, which definitely does not work for some people. I liked it though. But yeah, I feel like the characters are just much more likable, or you want to root for them more, or just more well developed.
Yeah, they're more, I hate to use the word more well developed though, because I feel like they're developed in a different way.
Yeah.
But maybe developed more in a way that we're used to when we say well developed characters. Like you feel like you really know them.
Yeah.
And know all their motivations, and it's easier to keep track of the gods.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to Angela about it, and she called it Malazan Light, which I liked.
If you're going to compare everything to Malazan, though,
I know, apparently.
Everything's going to be light.
I'm going to be that person now. But yeah, there are a lot of characters. I feel like they're easier to keep track of and remember, though. And a lot more of them are relevant than in this one. There were a lot of throwaway characters in this book, which I'm glad I found that out, because if I had really paid attention and then found out that most of them weren't, I feel like I would have liked this book less.
Yeah, I think that was part of my issue, because I was trying to get invested in all the characters who had backstories, because I thought they were going to be important, but like in a Game of Thrones sort of style.
Yeah.
Then they weren't.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I suppose I'm used to a lot of books where a character that doesn't seem very relevant to start with suddenly comes back and does something really important, and that obviously didn't happen because most of the irrelevant characters were killed. But yeah, it's like you put in all this effort getting to know this character, and then
it doesn't matter. Yeah.
One thing that I've just looked back on when I was updating Discord about this book, and so one thing that I did find interesting, and it actually throughout the book I still found it interesting, was the kind of the concept of empire, and like the different cultures on the different islands or cities or however. Like I just couldn't picture in my head, and I know there was a map, but again, ebook. Couldn't go back and check that. I couldn't figure out how these different islands and cities and cultures all, like, how they all fitted. But I did like this kind of concept of the empire. The emperor had been trying to unite everyone, but hadn't really done anything about the disparity of like the classes, but had tried to mingle the societies by moving people, and then the breakdown of the empire, they went back into these kind of, I can't think of the word, these groups that were then fighting against each other, and then Clooney's idea was to redo the empire but better. And so I thought that was a really interesting theme, and one thing that I did think was a really really, I'm going to say interesting concept. I can't think of another word. And so I did kind of enjoy how that played out, but just, yeah.
I am curious to see if Cooney's take on building a better empire will actually work, because I feel like, you see this often where people are like, oh, I can do this, but even better. And then it's like the same, you fall into the same way of thinking and the same, I guess like flawed reasoning, and it doesn't work out. So I'm curious to see what happens further down the line.
Yeah, the kind of concept of power corrupts and how that will play would be interesting. I say interesting, I'm probably not going to read it. But I feel like Cooney has a better chance because he's risen from the bottom. He was I'm sorry, I'm running out of words at this point. But he'd lived on the streets, he'd been an outlaw, he'd been at the dregs of society, and he worked his way up to his position by gaining loyalty of people at every level, and not just like the other nobles when he became noble. Whereas, was it Mappaderi, the original emperor? All he was interested in when he was emperor was like his own glory and building these monuments to himself, and he didn't care who he oppressed to get what he wanted. So yeah, I kind of feel like Cooney has a better chance of not oppressing people because he has experienced being oppressed. But,
well, I mean, like you said, he makes the effort to try to talk to people and understand their point of view, and like, what can I do to help you be better? I don't know.
Yeah, and I feel like he trusts the people he delegates stuff to, not like micromanaging per se.
Yeah.
Like when Jen, she became the queen of the two cities, I can't remember their names, and they were like, no, I don't think you should let her do that. And he's like, no, let her, it's fine. And it turned out fine. So I like that he trusts people.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the key difference between him and Marta as characters, is that he was willing to take advice and weigh up options, and actually often went against his own instinct if he thought the advice was good enough, whereas Marta was just like, no, if you don't agree with me, you're wrong, and messed up a lot of things because he wouldn't take any advice.
Yeah. Thank you, Fina, for stopping by. But yeah, I'm interested to see how he grows in the next book, or what's
or
gonna
doesn't.
Yeah. Or doesn't.
I'm gonna let you guys read it first, and
we'll let you know
if there actually are.
Looking forward to the spoilers.
And maybe more magic, and then maybe I'll give it a try.
But I think it's interesting that, honestly, like even outside of this discussion, there's just a range.
I feel like most people I know who have read it are like really, really invested in it.
Yeah.
Like I know Lena certainly loves it. But I don't know. I feel like, I've heard a lot of mostly positive reviews about it.
Yeah, I think it's just different from a lot of the stuff I've read. So it's hard to compare it to stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's fairly unique.
Yeah, I don't think I've read very much that's kind of specifically like it.
Yeah. I think that's why I keep comparing it to Malazan, because that's kind of in its own little box too.
Yeah. Definitely.
And this is in its own little box. Whereas I feel like most books I can think of something that it's kind of like.
Yeah. I suppose for me, things that I've read that it has some similar similarities to, sorry, brain is slowly running out of steam here. There are aspects that are similar in some ways to The Unbroken that we read last year at some point. But that had more magic and less battles. And then the other thing that actually there are some similarities to just in terms of some of the things that I didn't like about this book, I also didn't like about that series, is the Wheel of Time. Like, okay, there's more magic in that, but like particularly towards the end of that series, there are a lot of battles. The female characters, while some of them are really great, are definitely secondary to the male characters. And I think maybe that's part of the problem with this book. It's not that there aren't good female characters, it's just like
they're underutilized.
Yeah, underutilized, and they're just there to make up the numbers. Oh, well, I've got some female characters in it now. It's what it feels like. And so, yeah, I suppose in terms of that, like there are similarities to that series. And as well, I mean, those are ridiculously long books.
I've only read the first 2 and I had to give up.
The thing about books, I feel like, is if it's really long, it has to earn the length. So for me personally, I think it did, but I understand why other people wouldn't agree with that.
I think it's just very tricky to pull off such a long book. There are so few debut authors that I think can actually do it. S.H. Chakraborty is one of them.
Yes.
Well, this is his debut novel, right? I mean, he's from short stories and translating.
Short stories and the translation of The Three-Body Problem, which is sci-fi. But I think this is his first full-length novel.
Yeah. So I'm still impressed that it's a debut.
It's very ambitious.
Yeah.
And he has got good skills as a writer. Like the world building particularly, I thought was well done. I mean, I like the things that I've said about like not understanding how the society's fitted together. As I say, if I'd had it in a physical book and I could have checked back the map more easily, then maybe some of that would have made more sense. But certainly you've got the sense of what these different societies were to an extent and what was important. And so the one that I really liked was that little island that they just didn't want to be invaded anymore. They messed up horribly and they were like, please just leave us alone. Like, we'll accept people that want to come and join us, but just stop trying to take us over. And so there were moments like that, and that were like, really vivid in the world building. And like the emperor, that was the other thing the emperor reminded me of actually, and it may have been partly the name. The young emperor reminds me a little bit of the young emperor in the sci-fi ones, R.K. Martin.
Memory Called Empire.
Oh yeah.
Thinking more of the second book where he's like the young emperor, and he's kind of like, I've been left in charge, and let's just let other people run stuff, and that sort of thing. And I thought that was quite a funny thing. And like regent, his companion who was actually plotting to bring the empire down. I thought that was quite a clever idea, that who's just like, well, let's just make this emperor figure more and more ridiculous, and then it will undermine the whole dynasty. But then I was kind of gutted that that character, the regent character, didn't get the chance to explain to the incoming people, because he would have been a really useful ally for them, and they were just like, no, let's just one. It
would have been a really interesting dynamic to see his plan clash with theirs a bit more, rather than just like putting an end to it.
Yeah. The other thing I like, he's got really good like one-liners. Like you'll be reading and then there's just like a gut punch in there, and then he'll just continue on.
Just carry on.
And he does that in his short stories too. And it's just like, the feels. Or just a really good description. But it's not like flowery, which is nice.
Yeah,
I think for me there was like as you say, there were lots of big aspects of the plot that haven't really stayed with me, but there were little themes that have. And like one I was just thinking of that I think was described particularly well was the squirrel and the fish, and how that was quite near the beginning with the two rebels that kind of kicked off the revolution. And like it looks like, and everyone thinks it's this miracle, and then it's only a couple of chapters later that it's revealed that actually they did plan it, and it wasn't a miracle at all. And it's just like, I thought that was really, that there were aspects like that were really cleverly done. And so, as I say, there were things that I did like about this. It was just, they were outweighed by the things I didn't like.
That's fair.
I understand.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming up on the hour. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we? Okay. So next month we're reading Far from the Light of Heaven. And I don't remember, I think is it pronounced Tade Thompson?
I think it's Tade or Tady.
Yeah. But this will be my first one by that author, so I'm excited. And is it sci-fi?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm nervous because I didn't like his other book.
Yeah.
But this one sounds so much better.
Yeah, I thought it was supposed to be like a sci-fi murder mystery or something like that.
That's
So
what it sounds like. It's
yeah.
a colony ship.
Yeah. I'm also optimistic. I've read what is it, The Murders of Molly Southbourne or something like that. It was weird, but I think I did kind of like it overall. So I'm curious to see. Yeah, like I've avoided the Rosewater series because I've heard just like such mixed reviews, and I'm like, I don't know if I'll enjoy that at all. So hopefully this one will be good.
Yeah. The concept of this one sounds a lot better than Rosewater, I think. And I'm hoping because that was his first book, he's kind of developed as an author. And he doesn't have to lean on certain things so much.
Yeah.
That I'll talk about in the live discussion.
I gotta find where I put that book. It is somewhere in the pile of books in my book room. I don't know where it is. I should have pulled that out, so that'll be fun for me. But anyway.
You can vlog your adventure.
Yeah.
I have it from the library and I'm quite excited, but I don't actually know anything about it.
I don't either, and I'm gonna keep it that way because I think it'd be nice just to figure it out as I go.
Yeah.
Hi, Molly. So I will do a buddy read schedule on Discord if people are up for that.
Yeah, that would be good.
I've been quite enjoying doing that because that actually does motivate me to read in time for the live show. So
it definitely stops me from rushing.
The next couple of days on our Discord, hopefully will be linked somewhere for you to find in the description box. Yeah, so come and join us if you would like to read that with us.
Yes. And we'll announce the date closer to time toward the end of May.
Yes.
So thank you everyone for joining us, and we will see you next time.
Bye.